Welcome to the Mama Mudra Podcast, where the future of wellness is happiness. I'm Thompson-Duwe. I'm an entrepreneur, a mother of three, a very happy wife, a lifelong creative, and someone who has spent years chasing success, only to realize that the real success I was missing was peace. Mama Mudra was born because I saw a gap between the glossy world of wellness and the messy reality most of us live in, full of children, careers, expectations, responsibility, and this very human craving to feel good in our own skin. This podcast, this platform, these events, the studio that I sit in right now, these are my love letter to anyone who wants to redefine success as vitality, connection, and calm.
At Mama Mudra, we lead with a simple but profound belief, which is the future of wellness is happiness. It's a philosophy that I came up with just because I feel like happiness underpins or should underpin everything that we do. And if we lead what we do with happiness, it makes it more likely for you to want to repeat it. Therefore, you're getting consistency, which is ultimately how you get results. And also you're going to enjoy doing it. So that's going to benefit you on a cellular level. And, you know, the benefits are endless when you wake up and choose happiness every day. So everything that I do, from the events that we're going to launch, to this podcast, to the content, to all of it, is really trying to push this message of happiness. But happiness isn't just emotional. There is an element of science to happiness, and based on our brain types and triggers and lifestyle choices, there are certain ways to trigger more happiness than others in different individuals. It's something that I don't feel like it has been explored enough. Everyone focuses on physical health. Everyone focuses on emotional health. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people, and increasingly more so on mental well-being. But not a lot of people that I've heard are speaking about brain health. And so when I went to an event that a good friend of mine was hosting, and actually my next door neighbor, which I thought was more of a sort of superficial, cosmetic-focused event around wellness and longevity, I met my next guest, who is Matt Furlonger from NeuroVita. And he did a presentation that honestly had me at the edge of my seat. I think that I probably annoyed everyone at the event because I didn't shut up with the questions that I was asking, and I couldn't stop myself because it just was so interesting and so obvious in so many ways. The things, the information that he was imparting, not obvious in terms of information that we all have, because we certainly don't, although I wish we did, but obvious in terms of why haven't we thought of this. And it was the things that he was saying in terms of, you know, if we do certain things for our brain health, it will not only encourage healthier brain development, but also an overall healthier lifestyle, which then will impact everything else in terms of wellness and longevity, as opposed to focusing from the outside in. So he works on identifying brain types. They do a detailed brain assessment at NeuroVita, which then will identify your brain type. And then based on your brain type, he will not only identify where there are areas that you can work on to optimize your brain health, but also what you are predisposed to. So things that you can try and work around in order to optimize your longevity. So really, he has studied, you know, this is what he's dedicated his life to doing. So he has a wealth of knowledge and insight into brain health, longevity, and wellness, specifically focused around the brain. And so I have really sort of gone all in, and I'm trying to involve him in as many areas of Mama Mudra and the events business that we're launching soon as I can, because I believe really strongly in what it is that he has to say. So I am going to introduce Matt. I'm going to get him to tell everyone a little bit more about who he is and what it is that he does and how he came to be where he is. And then we're going to ask some basic questions around what he does. We could honestly, I think this episode could be 6 hours and we wouldn't even come close to touching on the questions that just I have for him, let alone anyone else. So I hope this will be a repeat episode, but also anyone that takes part in any of our events will meet Matt, because I really am planning on taking him as many places as possible that I go to, because he is that interesting and has that much insight into this field. So Matt, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks for the invite. Excited to be here.
Good. I'm glad. I feel like you are potentially getting sick of my face and my voice because you're seeing more and more of me speaking.
Getting more and more amped.
Good. I'm so excited. Please, won't you tell everyone what it is that you do and, like I said, how you came to be here and the intro.
At NeuroVita, we specialize in improving the health and function of your brain. It's the organ of your character, intelligence, creativity, and potential. It's central to everything we think, feel, and do. When we improve its health and function, there is often a very tangible and beneficial knock-on effect in everything we think, feel, and do. This translates into focus or better focus, memory, more resilient, steadier mood, just better quality of life. And as you said, with a healthier brain, almost always comes a happier life. And for the last 6 years, I've been working mainly in the mental health and performance side of things. And what I noticed during that time is that a lot of attention was given to improving psychology and mindset, which is like the software upgrade for the human being. But very little attention was given to the hardware, which is our brain. And in order for the software to perform optimally, foundational to that is the health and function of the hardware. And when I got to see this and came into contact with Dr. Daniel Amen's work, it just made absolute sense for me. This was like the missing puzzle piece, and it's what eventually led to us bringing the Amen Clinics method to South Africa and starting NeuroVita.
I mean, that's how I felt when I met you. not to sort of oversell the moment, but I literally did. I had such an aha moment because of the fact that everything that I'm trying to do is around happiness. But at the same time, and it is something that I've thought about because, I mean, I know that I am an inherently happy and joyous and energetic person. And to be honest, I think I drive, especially my husband, mad at times because I honestly, I'm one of those people, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, yes, it's a new
Rise
day.
and shine.
Rise and shine. And honestly, my husband's just like, oh, here we go. Less so at night. Thank goodness my energy levels do crash at night. So I've always been, and a lot of my family's like this. It's quite a funny story. When my husband first met my family, he literally turned around and he was like, are you guys punking me? Like, is this a joke? Like, no family is this happy with each other. We're just all like, love life. And it's a beautiful thing. And obviously, I'm not stupid. I know that not everyone has that inherent happiness, but I also know that it is a choice, and it is something that I'm really generalizing. Obviously, when people have real things going on in life, it's not easy to just wake up and be like, I'm going to be happy today. But fundamentally, if we're speaking from a broad level of trying to improve one's life, quality of life, if you wake up and as opposed to, as Andrew, who was here earlier, said, as opposed to saying, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening for me? How can I use this to learn, to grow, to evolve, whatever, wow, I'm so busy today, thank God I've got something to do today. So it is a conscious choice, but at the same time, there are certain things that dependent on your brain type and physiology are going to make that choice easier than for others, So for me, when I'm at gym or when I'm in a class or something that I know just lights me up inside, I am having the time of my life whilst getting the benefits of exercising and probably exercising harder because of how much fun I'm having, whereas someone else in the same class is hating every second. So they're like, get me out of here, and they're not pushing, So that was the aha moment with you, was when I can't even remember the words that you used, but it was that exact moment of being like, okay, hold on. So actually, it's not, you can't just say, just enjoy training. It's going to make you feel good. Because actually there could be certain types of training that will make you feel better than others. The sculpt heated class with weights and an instructor screaming at you and loud music that does it for me might make someone else feel super anxious and actually do the opposite and spike their cortisol. And it was along that tangent that you spoke, and which was really that aha moment for me to say, well, if we actually just all took the time to understand our brain type and our physiology better, then maybe, as we do with everything in terms of nutrition and even blood type for some people, we personalize our routines. Why don't we do that based on our brain type? Because ultimately, that's probably going to curate everything, everything else anyway. And that was kind of and just to drop a little teaser in here, even though we are going to be launching it as well, but this is actually something that we're bringing into our events, is we're going to have Matt there with us, and the events are all about sparking your joy and finding your happiness in order to live a happier, longer, more wellness-focused life, but based on your brain type and the understanding that Matt and NeuroVita has about brain type. So what does neuroscience tell us about, because, for me, I understand it on this very basic level and I love it just because it makes sense to me, but I don't necessarily understand how it works. So what can neuroscience tell us about that link between the brain type and the happiness? I assume the dopamine receptors. I don't know if that is the happiness link. I don't know, but explain it on like a very easy to understand level, please.
Okay, cool. Tells us that there isn't just one happy chemical. It's something we experience when multiple systems work really well with each other. And there's this wonderful cascade of feel-good chemicals that are released into the brain. Dopamine being one of them, but there's also serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, and endocannabinoids. Now, what's important to know about this is that brain chemistry isn't fixed. It's very receptive or responsive to our internal and external environment. And what's really exciting about that is that we can influence both our internal and external environment. One of the things, as you've already mentioned, is that choice of, choosing to be happy today, choosing to look for the positive or what's working well in a certain situation. Now, all of these things will, by influencing our internal and external environment, we directly influence our brain chemistry. So things like sleep, movement, what we eat, who we hang out with, the media we consume, the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves and our situation, that all affects brain chemistry. And by making micro improvements in those areas, we can slowly, over time, lift up or increase our baseline neurochemistry so that it is more primed for a better quality of life, for things like happiness, joy, optimism, resilience.
And longevity in terms of neural diseases like dementia, and I mean, there obviously are predispositions for those based on genetics, but one would imagine if your brain health is stronger, you are going to be more protected against those types of illness and issues.
If we're looking at it from a brain health perspective, yes, the more we look after our brain, the more we develop something called brain reserve. And that brain reserve is essentially the brain's resilience and capacity to cope with life's challenges and demands. The more brain reserve we have, the more protected we are from challenges with our mood, but then when we get older, challenges with our memory.
And when you say challenges with mood, that would also encompass depression and anxiety and things like
Absolutely.
that? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with memory, it would be things like Alzheimer's and dementia.
Amazing. So, I mean, I think you've kind of actually just answered this, but if you can just go into a little bit more detail, if happiness can actually be trained, and like you just said, we can actually rewire neural paths, we can sort of reset things. So does that mean if we make that conscious choice and we implement those more beneficial habits, we would actually rewire our neural pathways? So maybe if you are in a worse, in a pretty bad state in terms of your brain now, you could actually reverse that and be in a much healthier state a year from now if you just implemented those healthy habits.
In many cases, yes. So things like happiness, definitely trainable. We can't say in every single case, particularly when it does come to the neurodegenerative challenges. But for the most part, happiness is certainly trainable. It's not this thing, you either have it or you don't. Our brain is plastic, which means it's constantly changing, constantly adapting according to what we are repeatedly doing. right? There's a saying that most people, I think, know: neurons that fire together wire together. And whatever it is that we're repeatedly doing, and whatever we're repeatedly focusing on, or how we're reacting to situations, or the mental scripts that we are running on repeat in our mind, our brain is going to strengthen those pathways. Now, if our repetition is worry, anger, self-criticism, stress, our brain's going to get really good at that. It doesn't matter what you give it. It's going to condition in whatever you're repeatedly feeding it, right? At the same time, we can practice appreciation, connecting with people that we care about, moving our bodies, spotting what is right and going well in our life. And when we do, we strengthen the circuits that underpin resilience, connection, and contentment over time. And this, of course, leads to a better quality of life.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Zoraida Jardine, who does a lot of content around neuroscience, and I actually attended a workshop of hers recently, and she posted something a while ago. I'd actually seen it just before she posted it, so it was something shared. I don't know who originally said it, but it was something along the lines of the 80,000 or whatever it is thoughts that we have a day, 80% of those we had the day before and the day before and the day before and the day before. You know, they're just these constant. And I mean, I know as a A-type Gemini, mother of three, you know, with every type of sort of predisposition to being erratic and all over the place, I do. Like the second I wake up, my brain switches on in the morning. I've got this ticker tape of like, you know, like, okay, this is the kids, this is the work, you know, all of these things. And sometimes I do try, since I saw this, to stop myself and be like, hold on, you know, stop the noise and just like try and focus in on certain things. And on the same topic, also because a lot of those repeated messages to ourselves, I find, can result in negative self-talk. So with you saying that we fuse those receptors to be then wired to focus in on those messages. If what you're constantly saying is either reminding yourself of how many things you haven't gotten done, or telling yourself that you didn't do something right, or, you know, like those types of the negative self-talk that is kind of, it's sure, I get that we have to remind ourselves of things we have to do because we've all got too many things to do. But if the way that you're saying it is in such a way that is constantly almost telling yourself that you've failed, you haven't achieved, you know, like, oh, why didn't you get that done yesterday? You should have done this. You were right there. Why didn't you just go in there and, you know, like there's sort of the little ongoing list of errands and things like that. I find, since I've been conscious of it, since I saw or heard Zoraida mention it, it's made such a difference to me and how I feel inherently when you literally just flip the switch in terms of the way that you speak to yourself and the choices you make in terms of that ongoing messaging to yourself. So I think it's kind of like that. It's just, you know, make a conscious choice to either be happy, which again it can be quite simplistic, or just try and be kinder and more patient with the way that you are choosing to, you know, allow your brain to work and the messages that you are conveying.
Well, each of our habits is like a vote for the type of brain we want and the type of experience we want in life.
I love that.
Now, we can't always control our environment or circumstances. But in that situation, if we had to ask ourselves, well, what can we influence? Where is our power? That is in how we approach those challenges, how we look at and work with our environment. So with what you're saying, the thing that we want to be aware of is, well, what stories am I telling myself about myself and my situation? Because those stories have a very, very real impact on how we feel on a moment-to-moment basis. And when we keep the same stories on repeat, eventually that becomes an emotional state. And either we're going to be in a more helpful, optimistic, energized, empowering one, regardless of our situation, or we're going to be in something where we are more drained, pessimistic, or feeling a lot more helpless and hopeless. And that is going to put us in a much more difficult position to deal with whatever we have to face in life at that moment. That's the bit that I get excited about because, again, like I said, we can't control our circumstances, but we can get better at Well, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and our situation. And
Yeah.
when we get a bit more intentional about that, like you said, sure, a lot can change in terms of quality of life.
Yeah, there's that saying, and I say it to my kids all the time, you can't control your first thought, but you can always control your second thought, you know?
I like that.
It pops in and it's there, but you can control your reaction, you know? I think that's kind of where I want to go with this, on this journey with you, because I think it is ultimately there, exactly as you said, there's so much we can't control, and there's so much that is going to happen to us, and there is so much that's going to make us feel terrible, and you can't just be like, oh well, I'm just going to be happy today, you know, like sometimes life is hard and it's difficult, but overall, if you've wired your brain to be more resilient and inherently more optimistic, one would think that it would be easier to deal with those hard moments.
Subscribe to the Mama Mudra podcast now and stay tuned for part 2.